This here is a 7-seat SUV that you need to pay attention to. If you're after a budget-friendly family hauler, this could be the right car for you. I'm going to tell you why in this review. G'day, I'm Matt. This is the Mahindra XUV700, a new 7-seat family SUV that's all about value for money, space and practicality, and even safety this time around. Stay tuned, there's a lot to cover. If you're looking for the most affordable 7-seat family SUV on the market, you've found it. This is it. And there are two different grades available when it comes to the Mahindra XUV700. The entry-level version is called the AX7. It comes with a bunch of standard safety equipment. You'll see the price on the screen now, and there's a bunch of really good technology as well, including LED lighting around the car. You've got twin 10.25-inch screens on the inside, which look fantastic. There's Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as well. There's a panoramic roof. You've got 18-inch alloy wheels, and it really does have quite a bit going on inside. We'll get to that in a sec. And if you want a few more features, then you can spend a few more dollars and get the AX7L top spec model, which adds a few items that you might appreciate, including a surround view camera for the car and a blind spot monitor camera. So it doesn't have proper blind spot monitoring, but it does have a camera in the top spec version, which you might like. It's also got a 12-speaker Sony sound system, which does make a big difference over the entry-level version, electric park brake, and a few other items besides. As you can probably tell, there's a bit more to get to when it comes to the interior and safety stuff when it comes to this car, but first, let's have a look at some of the best alternatives to this car. So you're after a budget, family-friendly 7-seater SUV. Well, there are some really good alternatives to this car. None of them are quite as affordable in terms of the starting price, but there are some really big name brands that you might also want to consider, including the Mitsubishi Outlander. You can get it as a 7-seater, 2-wheel drive. It comes with a 2.5-litre petrol engine, so it does have a fair bit of punch, but not quite as much as this car. And then if you are also considering the Outlander, then you might want to also be looking at the Nissan X-Trail, which comes as an all-wheel drive with 7 seats for under 40 grand, so it could be the right option for you. Again, with that 2.5-litre non-turbo engine though. And then there's the LDV D90, which you can get for 38 grand or thereabouts, drive away, and it comes with a 2-litre turbo petrol engine and rear-wheel drive as standard. If you want to spend more, you can get diesel with all-wheel drive, but yeah, it's a pretty good option if you're looking for something that's a bit bigger, and it certainly is a bit bigger than this. This SUV fits into the mid-sized category, so it is about the same size as an Outlander or X-Trail, just under 4.7 meters long. So it's not necessarily intimidating in terms of its size, despite having 3 rows of seats. Now, with 3 rows of seats, it means you typically get a pretty small boot space. Let's check it out. One thing that some family buyers might not be happy with this car is there is no electric boot opening, so that might be an issue for you depending on what sort of life stage you're at. I know that with a 2-year-old, I always find that cars that have the electric boot, you just kick under the tailgate or whatever, just makes things a little bit easier because your hands are always full seemingly. Anyway, let's talk about the boot space. Now, at the time I'm filming this, there is no official figures for the boot capacity, but if they are available by the time this is published, you'll see them on your screen now. Anyway, you can just see here that there's not a whole lot of space behind the 3rd row, but there is probably enough to fit a couple of school bags or something like that. If you fold these seats down, and thankfully they do have little levers rather than the straps that so many other SUVs have, it just means that you get a much bigger boot. You've got a 5-seater SUV style level of boot space. There's definitely enough room in there to fit a week's worth of luggage for a family of 4 or 5. And I think that's going to be what most people are probably going to be doing with this sort of car anyway. If you're wondering where the spare wheel is, it's underneath the boot floor. You have to go underneath to get it. But I think that's kind of okay for this sort of application. And if you're wondering what this is, that's just a little tray that you can cover up your jack and that sort of stuff with underneath there. So yeah, it's not too bad at all. It's got a whole bunch of technology that does make it feel quite upmarket in here. You've got these twin 10.25-inch screens, which look fantastic. They're very crisp as well. It's got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You have to plug in your phone for it, but at least it's got that tech. There's a wireless phone charger in this top spec model as well. It's just a really nice place to sit. It's got a nice view of the screens. You look over the top of them as well because they're not sort of poking up too much in the way of your field of vision. And it does have a really nice vibe to the driver's seat experience anyway. Although I will say that the driver's seat is a bit hard. I've driven this car a little bit now, and it just doesn't quite have as much comfort as I might have expected it should. Maybe there's something to do with the lumbar adjustment getting in the way or something like that. Also, you should know this driver's seat is electrically adjustable. There's little controls on the door here for the adjustment, like a Mercedes, funnily enough. Manual adjustment for the passenger seat, and it doesn't have height adjustment. So if you're tall, you might find that your head might end up touching the ceiling if you're sitting in the front passenger seat. Now, when it comes to storage in here, it's pretty well sorted, right? So you've got a couple of cup holders, you've got bottle holders in the doors, you've got that wireless phone charger I mentioned, another little cradle here for another phone if you need it. There's a covered center console bin here with a little tray for your key if you need to put it in there. That's also got a little vent in there so you can make sure that it's cool. So if you've got chockies or something like that, that'll be nice. And when it comes to the controls, I love the fact that there are fan buttons. There's also dials for the dual zone climate control as well, a recirc button for the air conditioning, and all of that makes me very happy. There's another little row of buttons below there as well, so you can trigger the surround view camera in the top spec version if you want to. Plus, I also like that it's got a secondary controller here for the touch screen. That's a volume control as well, which is a bit strange because it's quite large and might be prone to being bumped if you are putting drinks in or something like that. But just good to know that you do have a volume knob as well as the controls on the steering wheel. And also I should mention that you've got these cruise control buttons on this side of the steering wheel, and you can also jump through the menus on this other driver info screen as well. Digital speedo, which I like, trip computer, which is very detailed as well. So it does have a lot of those, I guess, high-tech elements that Mahindras of the past maybe haven't had. And it does feel a pretty good experience in here for the price you're paying, especially up front. Let's check out the second row and see if it lives up to it. Second row space in this car is pretty good, I have to say. This seat is set at my driving position, 182 centimeters or 6 foot. Yep, lots of knee room, fair bit of foot room, and good headroom even with this big panoramic sunroof, which is standard on both grades. Nice to see that it is a pretty spacious experience back here, and it is pretty good in terms of the accommodation and amenities on offer as well. You've got directional air vents down here. You've also got a USB charge port there. Couple of map pockets on the seat backs as well, bottle holders in the doors, a flip down armrest with cup holders. So it's ticking all the boxes when it comes to the smarts in here. And if you have kids, there are ISOFIX points in the window seats and 3 top tether points across this second row as well. So it is going to be a pretty accommodating family hauler. Another neat thing about it is it's got this little lever on this passenger seat, so you can slide the passenger seat forwards and backwards if you want to. If you want more space and you're in this side, go ahead, make more space for yourself. Now, a couple of things about this second row though. It doesn't have sliding for it, so you can't adjust this seat to be more accommodating for whoever's in the back row if you wanted to do that. It just flips and tumbles this seat and that seat. Now, I guess I have to get in the back row and show you what the space is like. Third row space in SUVs like this is never the most accommodating. I mean, you've got to remember this isn't the biggest SUV, but I'm surprised by how much space I do have in the third row. Being as tall as I am, I can still fit with my knees very much in an upwards position, with my feet comfortable enough underneath the seat in front, although headroom is a little bit tight. So maybe up to 160 centimeters or so, you might be comfortable enough back here. And it's certainly going to be good enough for younger kids, for example, although there are no child seat points in the third row. So don't go thinking that you'll be able to load it up with all the little ones. Now, it does have some pretty nice amenities back here as well. You've got cup holders on the wheel arches, as well as a fan and a directional air vent on both sides, which will keep things pretty comfortable. No USB ports back in this third row though, which could be a deal breaker for some, but there's also a 12-volt port on this side. So at least you can have the option of having one of those plugs with USB adapters on it if you need to. I also like the fact that you've got little grab handles here, so it is a little bit easier to help yourself in and out by using one of those grab handles when you do get in and out. And I need to say also, this seat doesn't do the flip and tumble thing, only the passenger side or curbside seat does, which I actually think is a good thing because the smaller portion is going to be out of the way a little bit quicker and easier. All right, pretty good back here, surprisingly. Every version of this car sold in Australia will come with a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol engine, and you'll see the outputs on your screen now, very close to 150 kilowatts and 380 Newton meters of torque, which is quite a bit for a car of this size in this category. In fact, it makes some of those other better known brands with bigger capacity engines seem a little bit underdone. It comes as standard with a 6-speed automatic transmission, and it's front wheel drive only. And if you're wondering where's the electric or the plug-in hybrid or the hybrid version, there will be an electric version of this car at some point. It might wear a different name badge though, so stay tuned for that. Good news, people, the XUV700 is very good to drive. Like, not just good for a Mahindra, I'm talking good. Like, there's a lot of really promising attributes to the way this vehicle handles itself. It's really well composed. I'm on sort of back roads in country Queensland, as you can see from the cane fields outside, and it is very, very well sorted when it comes to disposing of inconsistencies on the road surface. So if you hit a sharp edge, or you find a couple of repetitive bumps or something like that, it is well sorted and it controls the body of the car nicely, makes it fairly comfortable. We had 4 adults on board and some luggage in the boot, and the reports from the backseat occupants was that it felt pretty good back there too. One thing that maybe could be better is the steering. It's not as predictable as it could be. So on the straight ahead in particular, it feels a little bit, well, vague in terms of what the next reaction might be. Whereas if you are sort of approaching a corner and then once you're in the corner, it feels pretty grippy. But yeah, it's maybe not the greatest steering in this segment, but nor should it be at this kind of money. Look, it's not a corner carver, but it's not supposed to be, so don't go expecting that you won't find any body roll when you're going through a corner or something like that. It does have a bit of body roll, but I think it's a pretty composed car to drive generally. These tyres are not fantastic. You will notice that they can sort of squeal a little bit when you do put your foot down hard to take away from a standstill or something like that. So maybe they'd be an easy upgrade to the drive experience. This engine does have a fair amount of torque for a vehicle of this category, far more than an Outlander or a RAV4 or even a X-Trail or anything like that. So it is a punchy engine, especially in the mid-range where you find that it does its best work. There is a little bit of low rev lag to contend with because it's a turbo engine, so just keep that in mind, but it's not slow by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I'd say it's pretty quick for the class. It's got more than enough torque to get the job done. Torque is pulling power. Pulling power means effortlessness. And this car, even with a full load on board, well, not 7 people, but 4 adults and some luggage in the boot, was really quite easy going when it came to acceleration. Even from a standstill, didn't really fuss around too much. The 6-speed automatic is pretty good in terms of the way that it behaves. It chooses the right gear, the right time, most of the time, as far as I can tell. So I would say that it's going to be suitable for most people's needs. Just if you're a really keen driver, you might notice that at times it has this sort of shuddery feeling to it, especially when you're just taking away from a standstill. But it's an ACEN transmission, and I've experienced that in other models that use ACEN transmissions. Couple of other findings that I've had: the rear vision mirror doesn't have auto dimming. That's not great. It's also shaky, so it's always sort of moving around in your peripheral vision, which isn't fantastic. And also it doesn't offer the best view out the back window because the headrests do take up a bit of space back there. Also, if you're the sort of person who likes to sit in traffic and do their makeup, shame on you. If you're the sort of person who is always checking just before they go into a meeting or something like that, just checking the mirror in the driver's side to, make sure you don't have any stuff in your teeth or something like that, this doesn't have a vanity mirror on the driver's side. It's only on the passenger side. It might be a bit annoying too. It's a pretty quiet drive experience. There's not too much noise to contend with. Just a little bit of engine noise comes through when you are accelerating hard. Not too much wind or road noise either, which is nice. The official combined cycle fuel consumption figure for the XUV700 is 8.3 litres per 100 kilometres, which is not fantastic by class standards, but maybe it's also a little bit more realistic than some of the other sticker numbers on other mid-size SUVs out there. Look, I reckon that you might be able to achieve that, but only if you're driving gently and you're not filling up all 7 seats. Now, if you're wondering what I've seen during this launch drive, which isn't what I would typically be doing, you'll see the figure on your screen now based on what the readout has told me during this drive. This car does not come with a 5-star ANCAP or Euro NCAP rating, but it does have a global NCAP 5-star rating, which isn't the same really. They're judged against different criteria, and it doesn't include anything involving the active safety technology ratings. So just keep that in mind. It might come with an ANCAP rating at some point. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, when it comes to technology, there is quite a bit fitted to this car as standard, including autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian detection. There's also a lane keeping assistance, adaptive cruise control, speed sign recognition, and plenty more as well. Now, if you choose the top spec model, you also get a blind spot camera system, not a proper blind spot radar system, and there's no rear cross traffic alert, but you also get a surround view camera in that top spec version as well. Weirdly, in the top spec model, you also get a driver's knee airbag, which you don't get in the base model, and that's probably to do with the fact that it's packaged in with the reach adjustment steering, which you also don't get on the base model. So that's a bit weird. Oh, and if you're wondering, it does have all the active safety tech, unlike the Mahindra Scorpio, which I also did a review of. Hit the link up there and you'll be able to watch that one. When it comes to ownership, there's a 7-year, 150,000 kilometre warranty for the Mahindra, and that is pretty impressive compared to most of the rivals out there. Mainstream rivals often have 5 years or unlimited kilometres when it comes to warranty coverage, or some of them have 100,000 Ks. So it isn't bad when it comes to the warranty stakes, and it's also got 7 years of roadside assist included for this model, which is good to see. And when it comes to servicing, if the pricing is available, you'll see it on your screen now, but if it isn't, just check the Mahindra site, you'll find it. I reckon this 7-seat SUV could be a really good option for people who are willing to roll the dice on the Mahindra brand, because it's not necessarily the best known brand in Australia, but for what it offers, it is very impressive. Tell me what you think in the comments section below. Would you choose a Mahindra XUV700 or one of the alternatives I mentioned, or something completely different? I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.